Hello everyone, Lee here. Just before you listen to this season preview episode of the Brunton Bugle, just to let you know, we had quite a few gremlins while we were trying to record this. It cut out 3 separate times and we had to splice a few things together to make it work in the end. So if the quality in the audio is not great at times and it sounds a bit funny, I do apologise, but we only have a limited amount of time we can record, so we had to fit it in as we can, and that's just the way it is sometimes. Also, before we start, I'd just like to give a big shout out to the Car United Supporters Club London branch, who've agreed to sponsor us for the 3rd season in a row. Their support is hugely appreciated. It really does help in terms of putting together the podcast, in terms of our hosting costs especially. It makes a huge difference. The London branch is open to all Car United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events, sports games and fundraising for the club. If you can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. If you aren't a member already and you are an XR, go and have a look at the website and sign up, because it's well worth it. They're great in terms of getting tickets for away games and stuff like that, and arranging travel as well, so really, really worth doing it. Right, enough of me rambling on to the episode.
Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the football club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
Come blue and white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Car United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
I'm Dan McLennan.
And I'm Mike Booth.
The new campaign is almost upon us, and that can only be one thing: our League One season preview episode. We look at the runners and riders in the division this season before making our usual dreadful predictions as to how things are going to pan out. That was about 12th time lucky, I think, getting the episode started there. Oh.
Is it just me, or did that music speed up and go slow a couple of times?
I think it was just you, which suggests that maybe the gremlins are still in there possibly, but we're going to plough on. We've had a few issues trying to get the recording started at the beginning, but we're here now. And as we said,
we started at 2:00 and it's now 4 in the morning.
Yeah. It's like watching Stevenage's injury time, isn't it? Really. But there we go. Yeah, so here we are. As we said in the intro, it's the episode that you all look forward to the most. It is the season preview. It's one of those ones, isn't it? I think it's a long old slog, this one.
Stop.
Go on.
The League One season preview.
Did I say the League Two season preview?
No, you just said the season preview.
Oh, sorry, yes.
League One.
League One. We have to make a point of that League One season preview, which makes it more interesting, doesn't it, guys? Because we don't know that much about League One these days, do we? We're a bit out of practice from it.
Speak for yourself.
Well, have you been doing your research?
Yeah.
Good, because I did mine this afternoon. Last week. No, I didn't. I've been looking a little bit this week at things, and yeah. So those who haven't listened to this episode before, it is a long one. We go through each one of the 23 teams. We don't cover Car United because we'll cover that later in the week when we do the opening game preview. And we basically go through some of what their transfers they've done and some of how their squad's shaping up. Anything that's maybe happened off the field, and there's some interesting stories in there. I think, Mike, before we started recording, before Dan came on, you were saying Reading looks a really interesting one, doesn't it? There's a lot of off the field stuff going on there, and there's a few other clubs. I'm sure you've spotted a few, Dan, as well. So we'll
everyone knows about Wigan and Peterborough. Something's brewing possibly as well. So.
Interesting, that one, isn't it? I saw that the other day. That's a really interesting one. So we'll cover all that. We'll give our thoughts on how we think those teams will do, but then we also do our predictions at the end. I've only wrote down a few of my little predictions initially because I'm going to wait and hear what you guys say because I might tweak them slightly. So
you're a follower.
I know, I'm a fraud, aren't I, in that sense? But there you go. But we did okay last season, didn't we? We all predicted United to be in the playoffs. So
I didn't.
Oh no, you didn't, did you?
No.
Unbeliever there, mate.
I know.
There you go. But yeah, so we'll go through all these teams and we'll discuss how we think they're going to line up and yeah, you can go and put some money on our predictions if you want, and you'll lose your money. So well done. Because we all predicted Stockport to win the title last season, didn't we? I think, or Stockport, or was it Northampton? Maybe I think, possibly.
I think I predicted Northampton. Yeah.
Yeah, I think me and Dan possibly went for Stockport. I can't remember, but there you go. Well, let's get straight into it then, shall we? So, first team up, we're going alphabetical order, of course. And I think it's me doing this one, isn't it? I think, if I remember rightly, it's Barnsley. Barnsley an interesting one, aren't they? Because obviously last season did really well, got into the playoffs, got to the playoff final, and lost out with near enough the last kick of the game, didn't they, against Sheffield Wednesday at Wembley, went down to 10 men. I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like for a club that goes through that, however good their squad is, mentally, surely that's going to affect them for this season, isn't it?
You'd think so.
Possibly. It depends. There's one or two new faces in. People come and go. It can do. It can go the other way as well. Though. It can strengthen resolve a bit.
Yeah. The big thing for them as well is not just the fact that they lost the final, but they also lost their manager afterwards. So Michael Duff, whose career is very much on an upward trajectory, isn't it? When you look at it, did really well at Cheltenham, got the job at Barnsley. He's now got the job at Swansea City, and imagine if he does well there. There's probably going to be Premier League clubs sniffing around if he doesn't get them promoted this season. So they lost him. Yeah. They've replaced him with Neil Collins, the former Wolves and Sheffield United defender, who, interestingly, he after he left Sheffield United, he went to America to play for Tampa Bay Rowdies. I love that name. I don't know. That is like one of the original...
the North American Soccer League. Yeah.
These days they play in the United States League Championship, the United Soccer League Championship. Sorry, in America, which is like the second tier over there, isn't it? You can't get promoted to the MLS, but it's the second tier, and he's done really well there. Actually, I think he's like won the sort of the conference table a couple of times. They got to the playoff finals a couple of times there in the last 5 years. But he's basically been brought back over to England to take charge at Barnsley. So it's his first job as a manager over here.
Can I just say that's a hell of a change of lifestyle.
Yeah,
Tampa to Barnsley.
Yeah,
no disrespect to South Yorkshire, but
I mean, he should be used to South Yorkshire, having been at Sheffield United, shouldn't he, for as many years as he did, you'd think. But there you go. Looking through their squad, they've lost a couple of key players. Brad Collins, goalkeeper's gone to Coventry City, and Mads Anderson's the big one, isn't he? He's gone to Luton Town. Yeah. But for 3.5 million, so it's good money to get in for them and give them a chance to rebuild the squad a bit. They've brought some interesting names in as well. Andy Dallas was one that was allegedly linked with us, wasn't he, Dan? I seem to remember a couple of times.
He has been linked a couple of times. And did Greg Abbott not take him to Solihull originally?
I think so, yes. I think that was the reason why a lot of people thought, maybe he'll come to us, but nothing's come of it. And then I think Corey O'Keefe's an interesting one from Forest Green. He seems to jump clubs quite a lot, though, doesn't he? He was at Mansfield, had a loan at Rochdale, did well there, and then he went to Forest Green last season, and now he's jumping on to Barnsley. But he's a good fullback. Max Waters, he's a name. He burst onto the scene at Crawley, didn't he, a couple of years ago? Mike, I seem to remember, scored a load of goals, got his big move to Cardiff, and it never really worked out for him there, did it? I don't think.
Yeah, it could be a decent signing. If it's one of them, isn't it? It's so hard to predict really what player it is that they've actually signed.
Yeah, one of those ones where, he's had that one good season. Is he ever going to recreate that season? I don't know. It's a tough one. I think Dallas is a good one there. I think he's someone, he's done really well at National League level for a couple of seasons now, so you could understand bringing him in. The one that surprised me a bit, this one stood out for me, Ben Killip from Hartlepool. Is that the same Ben Killip that I remember? Because all I remember about him is he's absolute gash. He's terrible. Every time I see him play, he's making a mistake. So I'm guessing he's gone in as backup because they've signed Liam Robertson, the goalkeeper, on loan from Middlesbrough, who I think was at Northampton a couple of years ago, possibly. He's going to be first choice. But yeah, interesting one. Off the field, a few little issues for them there. They've actually been charged by the EFL over some breaches. Now, they've said that they are a result of them. The investigation shouldn't be instigated by the club because it's related to their former owners, Paul Conway, not that Paul Conway, before anyone says, and Chien Lee, who I think sold the club last summer. So it's, there's potentially going to be an issue there if, they're found guilty of some of the charges, which is tough on them if it's a former owner that's done it, but that's the rules, isn't it, I guess? And they've also brought out a kit, which is absolutely minging, isn't it? Have you seen this kit? So it's a classic kit for them. It's a bit like, us bringing back, one of our classic kits from the past. But this just isn't a good kit, is it, Dan? It's a horror show, this one, surely.
I
Go on,
quite liked it.
Oh, my God, I can't believe it.
On the basis that it's one of their famous retro 80s kits, I think it was.
Yes.
And, there is a space for these kits now and again. And they've done something different, you know.
I guess so. I love the fact that the picture that was going around of that kit that we got to see was there David Curry wearing it with his lovely mane flowing in the wind as he ran along wearing it. Brilliant stuff. It's a tough one to judge for them for me because, like I said, we've got the new manager coming in and they're having to bounce back from the disappointment at Wembley, but they've still got quality. I mean, Herbie Kane's got to be one of the best midfielders in the division, hasn't he? You'd think, you know. He's someone I'm actually a little bit surprised they're still keeping hold of him. Really, you know, I would have expected big clubs to be coming in for him, but you know he's pretty good. Liam Kitching looked pretty good from what I saw of him in the playoff games too. I'm just looking down through Callum Styles as well has been a really impressive player for them. So they've got real quality. You'd be amazed if they were at least in the playoffs, wouldn't you? I think this season. I think so. Yeah, that's the thoughts on them. Up next, Blackpool. Who's got Blackpool?
I think it's
well,
me.
Hang on, you haven't sort of given Barnsley a prediction.
Oh no, I don't. We don't give individual predictions at each club. We do our own prediction. I said I think they're going to be up there in the playoff positions. Basically, I think playoffs. I think maybe automatics is a little bit out of their reach. I think there's a couple of clubs who might just have a bit more than them, but the key thing for them is keeping hold of some of them quality players like Styles and Kane. I think so. Yeah, I reckon playoffs-ish. So there you go. So Dan, you've got Blackpool.
Yeah. Obviously, the main news of Blackpool is one, they got relegated last season. Neil Critchley's now manager, and Jerry Yates has been sold for money.
Big money as well. Good money to get, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the big thing from Reece James also gone to Chef Wed. That's probably a blow for them. Well, back to Chef Wed.
Yeah.
Keshi Anderson went to Birmingham. You know, there's Curtis Nelson to Derby. They've lost a few players there, but they brought in a couple of decent ones. I mean, Matthew Pennington's always been decent at Shrewsbury for me, and Ollie Norburn at Peterborough. I think they paid money for him, didn't they?
Yeah.
Then they also got someone on the Yates deal from Swansea. I can't remember his name.
Kyle Joseph.
Yes, I'm just opening it up.
Good forward, yeah.
I don't know with Blackpool this season. They could be a top 7. Well, sorry, it's top 6 in this division, isn't it?
Yes, you got to remember that.
There could be a top 6 team, but could it be a season where they're just sort of 10th to 14th and
I kind of feel
a season of adjustment that they're sort of too good for League One but not good for the Championship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of expectation, isn't there, with Neil Critchley coming back in. I think that's the big thing there for me. I think if he doesn't get them up, I think he might be in trouble potentially because I think the expectation is they've brought him in to get them straight back up to Championship level, and like you said, the problem is they haven't really spent any of that Yates money yet, and we know it's burning a hole in the pocket, and we know they're looking for a midfielder, which we'll discuss on the episode later in the week. Obviously, hopefully nothing comes of that, but yeah, the lad Matty Virtue as well. I think that he's been linked with Wrexham, hasn't he? Allegedly, the rumour was they were going to offer him in a deal to us as any part of a Moxon deal, but interesting. Yeah, I feel like I think you're right, Dan. I think I'm looking at their squad now. I think maybe they're lacking a little bit of firepower in terms of goals at the moment. Maybe would you say?
Definitely.
Well, they need to replace Yates for a start, don't they? So.
And obviously they've lost Medina, who's got his cruciate ligament injury. He won't be back till probably about January, will he? I think so. So yeah, it's a tough one for them. Yeah, I tend to agree. I feel like for Blackpool, it might be a little bit of a season of adjustment, having lost some key players.
Yeah.
But
I don't think they'll struggle.
No.
But I just don't think they've got quite the quality to crack sort of the top a bit.
No, probably not. So you're going for maybe just outside the playoffs, do you reckon, for them possibly?
Yeah, I'm sort of like 10th, 12th, maybe flirt with it a bit, but...
Yeah, there you go. Right, well, let's move on then to Bolton. Mike, you've got them, I think.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Bolton, for me, they were pretty good last season. And on the outside looking in, they've had a pretty good transfer window. They haven't really lost anyone to a higher level. And they've just sort of added on what they had last season. But a massive, massive issue for me is George Johnston is out for the season. and he's a massive, massive player for them. He plays in sort of the left side of the back three, like John Mellish.
Yeah.
And so that, we've seen ourselves, that is a hard position to replace. And it's quite funny, actually, because he got injured like the day after Mellish signed his new deal. And because I was thinking, if Mellish hadn't signed that new deal, it wouldn't have surprised me if they might have come in for him, to be honest. Because he's possibly their best defender. And that's going to be a massive loss for them. But, at the sort of back end of last season, Jack Iredale, former Blue, was out injured. And he is now back for them. And he's a huge player for them. He's doing really, really well there.
Yeah, and I think he could actually play on the left side of that back three as well, can't you? I think so. You would,
probably
he might slot into that role, possibly, maybe.
Also, speaking of ex-Blues, as we reported earlier in the summer, Jones and Dempsey have signed long-term extended contracts there, so there's a lot of continuity there. I mean, Everett's been in charge for 3 years now, is it?
Yeah, and he's clearly doing a good job there. They clearly quite like him. Look, they were obviously it was a very tight playoff game against Barnsley, wasn't it? Obviously, only one goal in it in the semi-final. So for them, it's a case of kicking it on from last season. How much of a loss do you reckon, Mike? Though James Trafford, obviously going back to City to then go out to Burnley, is going to be for them because they've brought in Nathan Baxter from Chelsea and Joel Coleman from Ipswich, but a player of Trafford's quality is very tough to replace, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trafford is too good for League One. Simple as. So, you're not going to get them keepers along very often. And we've seen ourselves many times, losing a good keeper can just destroy an entire team. I don't think Bolton are going to kind of struggle or anything. But I think a lot of people and bookies and stuff have them among the favourites, and I'm a little bit cynical of that, to be honest. I think maybe playoffs.
I think they've still got most of their quality in there, so I can see why the thought is that they'll potentially be up there for a top two place. I mean, they all rave about their captain Ricardo Santos, don't they? And I'm going to keep saying this. I've never seen that boy have a good game of football, especially against us. He's looked absolute rubbish every time we played against them. So he must be good because he must have played well at some point. But I just feel I'm looking at the squad now, Mike, and there's plenty of quality in there. It looks like they're thin in midfield, but I think a lot of the players who are actually wingers are being classed as wingers rather than sort of attacking midfields and that kind of thing. So I think that's part of it.
I think they've played basically the same system as us, though. Like any kind of wingers will typically be playing in a front two, probably.
Yeah. But I'll still.
I'm just looking. Sorry to go back a little bit. You're looking at the keepers. I mean, they've signed Baxter on loan from Chelsea, but he's had about 8 loans and played 200 games. So he's not a young kid. He's a 24-year-old with solid experience.
Fair point there. He's actually signed permanently. I've just checked that because I thought, he's signed on there, but actually it looks like he's signed permanently. So maybe that's his first foray into being like a first choice, really, and being his own man, I guess. And Coleman's been about it a bit as well. So but no, I think I probably agree with you, Mike. I think they might not quite still have enough to get into the top 2, but I mean, you should think they'd be in the playoffs. I mean, looking at the signings, Carlos Mendes is a great signing from Luton, and I think Dacres Cogley as well from Tranmere. I wouldn't have minded us signing him if we couldn't get back, but obviously Bolton have come in for him. So you're going for a playoff place probably for Bolton, you reckon, then? Yeah, fair enough then. Right, Bristol Rovers next. Is that you, Dan? I think possibly. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Finished 17th last season. I don't think they were really in danger of getting into the proper dogfight at the bottom. Obviously, Mr. Joy Barton's in charge. He's been there a while now, hasn't he? They haven't had that much change transfer-wise. They didn't. There was 3 of them retired, and a couple of went lower level. You look at who they brought in.
Friend's a good signing. George Friend's a good signing, isn't he? He's been very experienced.
Yeah. But there's nobody stands out for me.
No, they've not been that busy, but like I said, I think you're right. There's not been a huge amount of change there. It's very much consistency there for them, isn't it? I'm guessing maybe they've had some youth players come through. I mean, the one signing that stands out, and probably not for the right reasons, is Giovanni Brown. Because any other time you'd look and think, Christ, that's a great get to get him on a free transfer. But off the pitch, there's issues there. and obviously we're not going to go into details on them here, but that's a big gamble to be taking, if you're looking to try and find a goal scorer with someone who potentially could be in big trouble soon. It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, Barton maybe likes taking these risks occasionally, I think, but
yeah, just doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what?
They've got names there like Sinclair and Marquis, but what's Scott Sinclair now? He must be mid-30s.
Yeah. He did well when he went back. I
Marquis
think
will be starting to get on. I mean, he must be 30 now. I've always liked Jordan Rossiter. I've always liked him. We were sort of linked with him when he was at Rangers, I think, but nothing ever happened of it.
Yeah, I think did he go to Bury? Did he? I think at that time, roundabout or something.
Possibly, yeah.
Someone, I can't remember. Yeah,
good old Ryan Lofts there still.
He is, yeah. I think he worries the disciplinary side of things a lot more than he does the goals these days, isn't he? I think he's had a few red cards now. Aaron Collins is the standout man for them, though, isn't he? I think he had it.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair.
It's a bizarre one, isn't it? Because he just came out of nowhere last season. He'd never really had a stunning season before that, and then suddenly, bang! He won the. I think did he win the League One Player of the Season last year? I think as well. I seem to remember. He was right up there. I seem to remember that. So he's an interesting one, but the question with that is, are they going to keep hold of him? I mean, you look at him; he's 26. You'd imagine there's a decent chance he's going to want to test himself at a higher level soon, isn't he? So
potentially.
Yeah. What do you think of Joey Barton as a manager? Out of interest, because he gets a lot of stick, but he's generally done a good job wherever he's gone, hasn't he?
I don't think he's the worst manager in League One. I don't think he's the best manager in League One.
I think the question
is fairly solid, isn't he?
I think the question with him is he worth the hassle? Sometimes, isn't it? Really, that's the thoughts most people seem to have with him. I think, but there you go. Where do you reckon they're going to finish roundabout?
Fairly similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be quite bad enough to be at the bottom. I don't think they're strong enough to bother the top half. Yeah. So that sort of 13th to 17th, 18th type area.
Yeah.
They'll pick up the odd good result and then throw in a stinker a week later,
Is the challenge for them, I guess, to keep hold of Collins, because if they lose him, that could be why they might start to struggle a little bit potentially.
Possibly.
Yeah, that would be a challenge, wouldn't it? Right, Burton Albion next. So Mike,
that's me.
What have you gone for them?
Well, they've been quite busy this summer, haven't they? I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 new signings. And one of them, Cole Stockton, which I think some people are saying, that's a cracking signing. But for me, he's had more crap seasons than he's had good seasons.
Last season was a weird one for him, though, wasn't it? Because he clearly wanted to go, and they clearly screwed him over a bit. They should have sold him and taken the money, but they didn't. So, yeah.
Josh Gordon from Barrow, he's probably not going to be sort of a regular starter, but it's a step up for him, isn't it? And Max Crocombe from Grimsby, I thought was a bit of he wasn't a keeper at League 2 level that I thought he's better than League 2 level. I thought he was just a pretty average League 2 keeper.
But then
they've signed Blackman as well, haven't they?
Blackman's a very good sign, isn't he? You'd think.
Yeah,
so I'm surprised. I mean, we'll get on to Exeter later because I feel like they're a team that might struggle a little bit. But yeah, because Blackman going from them, I thought it's a bit of a sideways step for him. I thought he might have taken a step up somewhere possibly. Other ones that stand out there, Mike. I think Jake Caprice is quite a good player. He scored, I think, his only goal for Exeter against us.
Yeah,
the famous game we went to with the animal.
But I think he was a left wing back wearing the number 2 shirt, so he should have been sent off.
100%, if that's the case, yeah.
For that, I'm sort of like with Bristol Rovers. Then I'm not expecting him really to pull up any trees. I think sort of bottom half, not really threatening relegation, but not really threatening the playoffs either.
I'm looking through the players they've lost. I mean, maybe.
Can I just say, I was just going to give a shout to Cameron Borthwick Jackson for moving to Slask Wroclaw in Poland.
That's a bizarre move, isn't it?
Transfer, isn't it?
That's a proper, the agent saying, I've got you a great move here. You're going to be playing in Europe. Oh, great, right. In fact, you're not. You're not playing in European competition. You're playing in, I think it's second division level, aren't they? I think it's Slask Wroclaw in Poland. I might be wrong on that one. I mean, they've lost Johnny Smith to to Wigan.
No, the top level
Is it? Okay, right. Okay, there you go. And Terry Taylor to Charlton. They're two maybe that you look at and think, oh, some key players to use. But I tend to go with you, Mike. I think that they're solid enough. And actually, Dino Marmaria is a better manager than maybe he's ever got credit for. I think he came in and
he's always won at Brunton Park. Apparently,
has he? Is that actually true?
No, that's something that he said, and then immediately people brought up facts, and he actually has a terrible record at Brunton Park, both as a player and as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, fair play. I like the arrogance of the fella, but it's that's just the way it is, isn't he? Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through Mason Bennett's quite a good addition actually as well from Millwall. He's a decent player. He's played at a good level for a few years. But yeah, I think their squad's solid enough, and I'd expect them to be doing okay. Interesting one. It's come through the youth team there. There's a Carl United link. Young Finn Delap, who obviously son of Rory, I think. I'm pretty sure that in saying that because I know Rory was involved there, wasn't he, for quite a few years. So yeah, Finn Delap, who's come through the youth team there, he's just signed his first pro deal with them, so he'll be interested to see how much he features for them. So where are you going on them to finish, Mike?
Somewhere sort of 14th to 18th, I think.
Yeah, so potentially they could get dragged into it, but you reckon they'll probably be okay and probably just about avoid it. So yeah, that's fair enough. Right, up next is Cambridge United, and that's me. Now, they're an interesting one, Cambridge. Last season, they avoided the drop on the final day, got the result they needed. They had the first season back in at third tier level, they did okay. The second season, they struggled quite a bit. I think losing the influence of Wes Hoolahan definitely had a big impact on them at that point. I think they really struggled to make things tick. But they've stuck by Mark Bonner, the manager. He's done a really good job since he took over there a few years back. They're sticking with him again this summer. But they've lost some key players, especially in attack, haven't they? I think that the two that stand out, the lads who've gone to Reading, that's Sam Smith and Harry Nibbs. I feel like those two, losing them. And
I think Lloyd Jones is a massive loss as well.
Oh yeah, Lloyd Jones obviously has gone as well in defence. And I know Joe Ironside probably hasn't featured as much in the last couple of years, but he's still been a really good player for them. So to lose three attacking players like that who have a decent impact on the team. And then also the goalkeeper, I'm not sure I don't think they offered him a new deal actually, Dimitar Mitov, who's been a really big player for them. He's gone to St Johnstone. I think they might have actually let his contract run out. When you lose all those players and then you look at their additions, I'd be worried if I was them. Would you be, Dan? I'm looking at them and there's not much quality going in, is there?
No. There's. I think it's a season of struggle for them. I really do.
Yeah.
There's just not much.
Yeah, I mean the thing that stands out when I look at the actual the team, the squad, I'm looking down it now. What I will say is there's plenty of experience in defence, and the two that stand out are Ryan Bennett and Michael Morrison, who are both there. They've both played at championship level. Ryan Bennett, in fact, played in the Premier League, didn't he, for Norwich City? So two good players there. Harrison Dunk as well. He's been playing there for years, and I think it's about 10 years he's been there now, I think, or something like that. But it's when you go into attack and you look at the options, I just think to myself, Sully Kai. He's a player I've always liked, but he's never really quite kicked on from that. I think he had a loan spell somewhere when he was quite young, didn't he? And he did really well and never really performed beyond that. And the rest of them, and look, I know we don't know that much about the players at League One level compared to what we knew about League Two, but there's not many names I recognise there. I'd genuinely be very worried if I was a.
Well, for me, the names that I recognise have all left. So.
Yeah, that's the thing that stands out, isn't it? So I obviously made some notice, and the other thing, interestingly, there's one thing off the field. There's a bit of an ongoing issue in terms of the redevelopment of the Abbey Stadium as well. I think there's a supporters club building that backs onto one of the stands, and the club wants to buy the lease off the supporters club for that, and basically so they can redevelop that stand, and then they're going to give them a new building there. But there's a lot of Chinese whispers going on about that, about what will actually happen. So that's an issue they've got, because it's a weird ground, isn't it, Dan? Because you go there and you've got that brilliant new stand behind the goal, but they give it to away fans, don't they? And it's miles away from the pitch as well, because I'm guessing they want to do what we were planning on doing, move the pitch up a bit and whatever. But it's a very weird setup there, and it kind of feels like nothing's really being done beyond that new stand for decades, does it? So that's a real challenge for them. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the season's a struggle. If I'm brutally honest, I think they're going to be in the bottom four come the end of the season.
Yeah, I think so.
I think unless they can get a couple of good players in over the next few weeks, I think it's going to be a really, really tough one for them. So that's my prediction. Cambridge United are going to be relegated, I think. So we'll have to see what my predictions are like later, but I suspect that they probably will be in there. Next will be Carl United, but obviously we're not going to cover them because we'll cover them in the game later in the week. Episode later in the week, sorry. Charlton Athletics. So who's got Charlton? Is that you,
That's
Mike?
me.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you reckon for the Addicts?
I think they're going to have a good season this year. I mean, they've signed Alfie May from Cheltenham. He's a good striker.
That's a great signing for me.
I mean, he scored some unbelievable goals that season, wasn't he? Like long range ones, some short, close range ones. Really good player.
We touched on it before. He signed Lloyd Jones from Cambridge. Another good signing. And they're a big club, I mean, last season they finished 10th. But I think this season they can push on, maybe flirt with automatics, but certainly at the very least playoffs for me.
The one thing with Charlton is, and it seems to be a constant thing over the last 2 decades, really, off the pitch just continues to be a bit of an issue for them, doesn't it? I think that they still have these issues in terms of the ownership and what's going on there. So I do wonder with that, is that maybe potentially be an issue for them possibly? That might cause problems, but I think they're kind of hoping that maybe that'll be quieter this season, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of clubs kind of low-key have ownership issues going on off the field. I think there's certainly clubs in the league with much worse issues going on.
I think some of that is what is making the prediction side of it harder because we're going to start in on minus. Reading have got potential stuff coming up. I mentioned there's whispers about Peterborough, Barnsley have got stuff. I mean, you could end up with half a dozen teams getting deducted, which it's making it hard.
You're absolutely right. I'm just looking at the squad again there, Mike. Harry Isted as well coming in the summer. That's a good one because I think he was on loan at Barnsley, wasn't he? And I think Barnsley are a bit disappointed that they couldn't get him permanently. I think obviously they've managed to snatch him from Luton of Charlton. That's a good addition. And looking through the rest of the team, like they said, there's plenty of bits of quality. What they've done is they've signed some really good players from other clubs in League One, haven't they? Like I said, Lloyd Jones and Terry Taylor. Obviously, we mentioned the fact that Harry Isted was at Barnsley last season and then Alfie May. So they're being smart, aren't they? They're buying players from clubs who've done well at the level to try and boost their own squad.
Yeah, definitely.
Difference. What do you reckon in terms of where they're going to finish then?
I'm going to say playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think I'd probably agree. I think in terms of the transfers, I think you're right. They made some really good additions in terms of those signings, and so well, there you go. Cheltenham Town next. Is that you, Dan? I think possibly. Yes, it is. Cheltenham Town.
It is. Yeah. I think for Cheltenham, it's a season of struggle. To be quite honest, I mean, obviously we've mentioned Alfie May at Charlton. That's a big loss for them. Yeah. They haven't brought many in, maybe 5 players, is it? And I'll be honest, they don't really stand out, do they?
No, they were well away from trouble last season, weren't they? But like you said, losing Alfie May's goals, and when you look at the additions that have come in, Rob Street from Crystal Palace is the only attacker, isn't he?
Yeah,
So that maybe doesn't bode that well.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We're going to start seeing all the loans happening. As we build up to this first week of the season. Now, Premier teams are coming back from tours and that, but I think it's going to be a long, hard slog for Cheltenham.
Do you think?
No disrespect to them. I think they're batting above their ability.
I think they always are, aren't they? Once they get to League One level, aren't they? And that's no disrespect to them. It's just the fact that they aren't a big club at that level, really, at the end of the day, are they? So, what about the addition of Curtis Davis for them? Now, that's a good bit of experience at the back, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he is 38.
Yeah.
So that's the one problem they've got there. Great signing, but what's his legs going to be like? I think obviously he was at Derby last season, so
I just don't see anything to get excited about at Cheltenham.
Yeah, and like I said, there's not that many additions, and they just about kept themselves away from trouble. And as you mentioned, the Alfie May goals were a big part of that. So to not replace that. Kind of does worry, doesn't it? So, are you expecting them to be the relegation zone then, or down there at least?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I think it's a long, hard season for them.
Yeah, I can see it being a real struggle for them. There you go. Right, up next, Derby County. This one's mine, I think. So, Derby, yeah. Everyone's predicting them to be the champions, aren't they? By the looks of things, everyone seems to think, right, this is going to be their season. If you look back to last season, they ended up missing out on the players at the end. It was a bizarre situation, wasn't it, against Sheffield Wednesday or something? In terms of Sheffield Wednesday had nothing to play for on the last day, didn't they? And the way things went was really strange.
Well, all the Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley both knew they were at home.
Yeah.
Second, and that's why our game got moved to the Saturday from the Friday, because South York's police didn't want 12:30 and 3 o'clock, which they fully understand,
Yeah. I suppose the one thing for them, they probably look back at last season and think we should have got rid of Liam Rosenior Senior and brought in Paul Warne in the summer, basically, rather than wait until I think it was the end of September he came in, didn't he?
Yeah.
To replace him. So if they brought him in sooner, maybe they would have done it, because they just dropped off in the last few weeks, didn't they? And they just didn't quite have enough to get over the line. In terms of the summer transfers, they've lost a couple of big players. Christian Bielik has gone to Birmingham City for an undisclosed fee, and Jason Knight has gone to Bristol City for an undisclosed fee as well. And I suppose the other big one that they've lost is David McGoldrick, who they did offer a new contract to, but fair play to him, he's turned it down, hasn't he, to go to his boyhood club, Notts County, for maybe one last couple of seasons there, to show what he can do and keep them in the EFL this season again. But actually, in terms of signings, I'm quite impressed with some of theirs. I don't know what you guys think, but I mean, Josh Vickers is a decent goalkeeper from Rotherham United. No surprise Paul Warne going back there to pick up a couple of plays. Connor Washington as well, in terms of attacking options, and Sonny Bradley from Luton, and I think Joe Ward from Peterborough United. I was impressed with him in the playoff games from what I saw. So and Kane Wilson, actually, sorry. I mean, every one of their signings look like a good addition, don't they, Dan?
Yeah. They're by far the biggest club in the division for me now.
Yeah.
Ipswich and Sheffield going up, and that sort of leaves them as the last of the three really big. Don't get me wrong. Likes of Bolton, Portsmouth are good sized clubs, but Derby are just that little bit more, and it's going to be a surprise if they're not right up there, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I think they've signed really well, and actually, when you look through the squad, there's still plenty of quality in there, isn't there, as well? I'm just loading it up now. And yeah, even players they've kept from last season. Your likes of Craig Forsyth's got bags of experience for years now. Where am I out here? I'm trying to find the other ones. Conor Hourihane as well. He's a player. Bags and bags of quality level. Corey Smith, Mendes Lang as well in attack. James Collins has scored goals for fun wherever he's gone, really, and Tom Barkhuizen as well. So I mean, you look at those four. You'd argue Ward probably is potentially in an attacking option as well. But you look at the five options they've got. Washington, Collins, Mendes Lang, Barkhuizen, and Ward in attack. I think most teams at our level would be quite happy with that, wouldn't they? I think, in terms of the attacking options.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. Before you mentioned Bristol Rovers signing a naughty boy. I mean, they've got that midfielder, haven't they? Who sounds like a life sentence. Max Bird. No. No, hang on. Never mind.
Hang on. Give me a second here. I've got to find the button now. There you go. Thank you very much. We've got to start the season off somewhere, haven't we, really? But there you go. I mean, Derby County, I'm going to be honest with you, top two. I think they'll be top two. I think they've got a very good manager as well, which really helps things as well. So yeah, I think they maybe still need one or two additions. The squad looks a little bit thin, but you'd expect, like you said, Dan, with those Premier League clubs coming back from their tours, they're going to have the pick of some of those players. You wouldn't be surprised if you saw them picking up someone like a J.K. Gordon ahead of us, basically, just because it's a slightly stronger level in a team that's probably going to be challenging for the top spots. So you'd 100% expect the potentially to be interest there. So there you go. Derby County, right. After them, Exeter City. So who's got them?
I'm trying to find my list. I've got that many windows.
You got that list? It's you. It is you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you reckon to them, Dan? I think it's going to be a tough season for them.
They're one of them sort of just mid-table teams last season, weren't they? They've had a bit of a in and out this summer, haven't they? You know, Archie Collins went to Peterborough for money. You know, we said Blackman, the keeper who we've always liked, he's gone. Giovanni Brown, you know, less said the better.
Jack Sparks as well, going to Portsmouth as well. He's a good player.
Yeah, so they have, and Jonathan Grounds didn't want to stay as part of the coaching staff, which was probably a little bit of a blow for them. I'm looking at who they've brought in. It's a proper mix. Exeter have to have a mix. You know, they brought a couple in from non-league, one from Scotland, a couple of loans from London, unattached. It's a proper mixed bag, isn't it? I think they may struggle, but I don't think they'll be bad enough to go down.
The one thing they always heavily rely on is young players coming through as well. Now, I'm looking here.
Yeah.
They've got, I think, 5 new players who come up from their youth team, and they generally do very well whoever comes into their first team squad, don't they? So you'd expect them. And there's even some who, you know, are already there as well. Yeah, Pedro Borges is a Portuguese lad who come from, I think, their youth setup. He seems to be right in there. In terms of those additions, Dan, I have one name that really stands out to me because I didn't even realise he was still playing. It's Tom Carroll. Really interesting one, isn't it? That one. I mean, has he been without a club for quite a while, I seem to remember? Have I made that up? He left. Yeah, he did have a club at all last season. I've just checked there. He left Ipswich last summer.
Yeah.
So if they can get him up to speed, he could be a real quality player for them, couldn't he?
No, he took the year out to regain his health and fitness and trained with Tottenham for most of the year.
Oh, well, he started out there, didn't he? I think so. That's probably one of the reasons why he done that. But yeah, it's an unusual one, isn't it? They've signed that keeper, the Finnish keeper on loan from Villa as well, haven't they? I think as their new, I'm guessing their new first choice stopper as well. So interesting to see how he gets on. But yeah, when you look through it, I don't know. I just have a feeling that it's going to be a tough season. I think they're heavily relying on Carroll to potentially turn up and really perform for them, aren't they? I think. That's
like I said, I don't think they'll be bad enough to go down.
No.
But I don't think it'll be the most enjoyable season for them.
No, I think last season as well, they relied quite heavily on the lad Adam Stansfield, didn't they? Not Adam Stansfield. Is it Adam Stansfield? It's his son. Forgot his name now.
Yeah.
The lad Stansfield, obviously, you know, his dad died when he was playing for them, didn't he? And you know, he had a real impact when he came in. So, not having him back might be a bit tougher for them as well. So you reckon you're gonna have them as another one who's maybe just sort of lower mid-table potentially next season?
Yeah. That sort of 17th area, you know.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next. In fact, should we take a quick break actually before we go to the next one? We'll have a little break to break things up. So before we get on to Fleetwood, which is the next one that I've got, here's the little break.
This is John Mellish. You're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
And we're back for the next part of our season preview episode. Fleetwood Town. So that's the one I've got. I don't know how to judge these because if you look at last season, they were well away from trouble. They were in the top half, I think, when they finished 11th or 13th. Sorry, pretty decent first season for Scott Brown in charge there, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say. You know, he'd done a solid job, kept them away from bother. But the thing that really stands out from this is off the pitch. That's where the problems are, isn't it? That's where the big concern there. So obviously, for those who aren't aware, Fleetwood Town have been owned by a guy called Andy Pilley for quite a few years now, and he's basically taken them from being like a Northern Premier League team, about just above Workington's level, weren't they? I think completely rebuilt the club, built a brand new stand there, an incredible training centre there. They've even got like a B team effectively, haven't they? I think where they basically develop young players. Sam Fishburne has obviously gone there to be a part of that. But he's been the one who's ploughed the money in through his business. Now he has been jailed for 13 years for a multi-million-pound fraud which duped firms into expensive energy contracts through his energy company. So they're suggesting that it's not going to be a problem for them, but they're heavily reliant on his company, him and his company's backing to survive at League One level because they don't get the crowds. And obviously Blackpool been bit more revived in the last few years as well, has made it more tougher for them. So, I don't know about you guys. What do you think, Mike? I think it's going to be a really tough season for them in that sense.
Yeah, honestly, I think they could go down. I think they're certainly going to be struggling. They haven't really done much this summer either. I mean, they haven't lost a lot, but they haven't really brought much in.
There's 2 or 3 more I haven't put on there, I should say, on the list that I've done for us, because they were lads who joined their under-21 side. Fishburne is one of them.
Fishburne has really.
Fishburne has, but I put him on there just to remind us the fact that he's an ex-Carlisle player. So yeah, you're right, mate. They haven't done a huge amount. What I'd say is Danny Mayer from Plymouth Argyle is a very good addition. He's getting on a bit now. He's 32, I think, but he's a player who's always had real quality. I always really liked him when he was playing for Bury, and if we'd been in the market for an experienced midfielder in that sort of role, the way he plays, I'd have been delighted if we'd got him this summer. I think he would have been a really good addition, but as it is, he's gone to Fleetwood. As you mentioned, not a massive turnover in the squad, but there's still quality in there. If you look at the squad, I mean, Jayden Stockley and Jack Marriott in attack. Now, they're 2 players that I think in attack, maybe not some of the bigger clubs, but most of the clubs at our level would be delighted to have them as attackers, wouldn't they?
Yeah, true.
I think, they had a real bit of quality in there. They've signed Ryan Graydon from Derry City, I think, he's been a big player for them in recent seasons. So he's, they do tend to sign a few from Ireland, don't they, I think? Because they've got that, or they had, I don't know if it still is the case. Pilley did also own Waterford FC, I think, in Ireland. I think they're a little bit more concerned about the issues in terms of him than Fleetwood seem to be. But yeah, I really, I don't know how to judge this, because like I said, if that money disappears, then they will struggle. I think they've probably got enough players in that they could sell 2 or 3 to make a bit of money, potentially, to cover themselves for now. But, like you said, I don't know. I feel like they got close to getting promoted a few years back, didn't they, I think? But they've never really done it since. I tend to agree. I think they might be a team that struggles a little bit. I'm not sure they'll be bad enough to go down. I think they've probably still got enough quality if they can keep hold of those attackers. I know, who was it? Did we say, Dan, someone came in recently to bid for Marriott, I think, already? I can't remember who it was. I remember you sending me something about that, but I think there's another club who's come in and bid for Jack Marriott, and it was knocked back. So, clubs are still already interested in bringing him in. So yeah, I think Brown's done a very good job there, and they clearly like him because he got a new 2-year deal in the summer. I think he's going to have his hands full in terms of keeping them away from trouble this season. So I think I'm maybe not in the bottom 4, but they might be a team that flirt with it if they potentially lose a couple of those players because they have to balance the book.
I think they'll be in the mix, but I think they'll have just enough.
Yeah.
And if they are struggling for players, Brown's always going to be able to get someone from Celtic or Aberdeen, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got one in, hasn't he, this summer? Montgomery's coming on loan. So.
That's always going to be an option for him.
Yeah, exactly. He can go to Scotland and get a couple of players down. They're going to be decent quality. So yeah, I think they might struggle a bit, but they should have enough to keep themselves away from trouble, I think. So, be interesting to see how they do, though. Up next, Leyton Orient. Who's got Leyton Orient this year?
That's me.
Go on, Michael, what do you reckon?
Well, I mean, obviously, in the end, they kind of walked the league last year. And they weren't too dependent on sort of one person to score a load of goals. They really sort of spread the goals out through the team, which is the sign of a good team. Massive loss for them is Lawrence Vigouroux, who went to Burnley. Obviously, they signed 2 keepers since.
Saul Britton's a good addition. He did well at Swindon, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how them keepers adapt will sum up how Orient do this season. I don't think that they're in much danger of going down, to be honest. I think they've got enough about them.
Ethan Galbraith could be one of the signings of the season.
Yeah, it's a good signing, that, to be fair.
I would love to have seen him sign for Carlisle. I don't think we'd ever have had a chance of getting him.
No.
But he is too good for League One, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a good sign. I'm quite impressed with them getting him.
Joe Piggott's a decent sign, actually. He's a big target man, so it gives them a bit of a plan B. I think he's about 6'4". Got a lot of experience, sort of Championship, League One.
Yeah, I think getting Idris El Mizuni back on loan as well from Ipswich is a really big bonus for them because he was a big player for them last season, wasn't he?
I'm assuming that. Sorry to go back to keepers. I'm assuming Bryn came on loan as part of the deal that took the striker to Middlesbrough.
Possibly, yeah, that would make sense actually. Yeah, But,
or if it wasn't part of the deal, it was sort of promised. Look,
yeah.
in a couple of weeks you can have a player from us.
Yeah, and they signed a young keeper from Wealdstone as well. So I'm guessing he's one they're going to develop to be the first choice in the long term, possibly. But yeah, and Dan Ajay as well is a good signing from Crewe. Considering they've lost Paul Smith to QPR as well, to lose Smith and Vigouroux would be a big blow for most clubs, wouldn't it? But
One who was linked with us a lot, Aguiar, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I think that was one of the typical EFL rumour Twitter things, isn't it, as much as anything. But yeah, so I've had to agree with you, Mike. I think that they've got enough to keep themselves away from trouble. I think they've got a decent manager, as much as he's a bit of a gobshite in Wellens. I think he's a decent coach. I think, like I said, getting El Mazzuni back on loan as well, in a similar way it was getting Alfie McCalmont back on permanently, is a really big move for them. But as you say, the keepers could be the key here, because Vigouroux that was a big part of how they play, because he could play it so well out from the back, couldn't he? He was so good with his feet. They're going to rely on Bryn to be like that from day one, I think. So
I think the rest of the defence has pretty much stayed, though, hasn't it?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, looking at them, really lost any.
Which I think will make it easier for an incoming keeper.
Yeah. So basically, he needs to get their trust as quickly as possible, essentially, doesn't he? And that's where his challenge is in terms of that. Mike, what are you thinking in terms of where they're going to finish?
I think sort of bottom half, but far away enough from trouble. So like 14th, 13th, something like that. So
teetering on the top half, basically, is what you're thinking, essentially. But I think I tend to agree with that. It's fair enough. Lincoln City next.
I slightly disagree, but I'll tell more at the end.
Oh, okay. I think is he going to go for them to be up near the top, maybe? Oh, very
You'll have to
interesting.
wait and see.
Interested to see what Dan says there.
That's why we do predictions at the end.
Yeah, we do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Lincoln City up next, and that's one of mine. Interesting one, Lincoln, aren't they? Because you look at when they came up from non-league football, back from non-league football, I should say. They made a big impact straight away, didn't they? They'd had that great run in the cups. They'd invested heavily. They had owners that were putting money into them. Like, I think record season ticket sales, that kind of thing, and they didn't fly straight. I can't remember if they took 2 seasons to get up from League 2. I can't remember now, but they eventually got themselves up to League 1, and they spent 5 seasons there now. And there was a lot of talk, wasn't there? I think their owners saying, they wanted to get them to the Championship, within however many years, I think, and that's kind of stalled a little bit, hasn't it? They found it a bit hard to kick on to that next level. I think teams tend to find if they have these plans, and then once they get to League 1 level, League 1's a tough league to get out of.
Yeah.
Because you only get the 2 automatics as well. And you always get these big clubs that come down from the Championship who just basically throw money at it to try and get themselves straight back. So that makes it tough. So
enough of the sensible talk. Let's talk the main Lincoln thing. Look on that signings list. He exists.
Oh, okay, right. Well, we'll cover. I know you want to, right? Well, I said before we get on to him, he where art thou, Lucas Jensen? I saw an article on the BBC football website saying that Mark Kennedy was actually talking about the fact that he was, they were finding it a bit tough to get signings in, and they're hoping that we'll be able to get some more in soon. But actually, when you look at the signings they've made 2 or 3 interesting additions there, haven't they? I think it's fair to say, Dan. Lucas Jensen, you mentioned there, somebody who's actually done quite well since he left us, hasn't he? He's had his his loan spell at Accrington, did fairly well there. Lincoln have brought them in the summer, and I think Rico Hackett from Portsmouth is an interesting one as well. I've paid an undisclosed fee for him. Tyler Walker from Coventry City, I think he's a really good addition. The one I really like is Alistair Smith from Sutton, because every time we played against Sutton, I was really impressed with him. I think you said to me, on that final day of the season, Dan, that game we went to, you yourself said he's a good player. I like the look of him. He's quite handy, isn't he? So I'm glad he's got his big move, because you don't want players to end up stuck stagnant at Sutton.
I should be a scout, mate, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should be, to be fair. But yeah, they had a decent season last year. They finished in 11th. I think they're going to find it tough to kick on beyond that, though. I think Kennedy did really well in his first season, but I feel like it's going to be a bit of a challenge for them to get there. And it does. I know it kind of feels like we're putting every single team into the into that zone of just above relegation zone sort of thing. But I think in this case, I'm gonna have to do that again. I feel like I kind of feel like there's just not quite enough there for them to kick on. But I think they've signed enough to keep them sort of in the similar position. I think they'll just be inside the top half is my prediction. I think Lasse Sorensen as well is a really good player for them. Go on.
I think pretty similar to last season, personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's just not quite enough to get them up high. I think Jensen looks like a good addition in terms of a goalkeeper. I think that he's shown he's got good experience at League One level now as well. I think, like I said, Smith's a good addition in midfield. I just feel when I look at it, maybe if Walker can get his shooting boots on, he'd be great. But I think beyond that, they might struggle a little bit for goals, possibly. So yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to finish round about on the sort of mid-table position. I think. I'm just checking to see if I've made any notes of anything off the field. I don't think there was anything particularly off the field to talk about with them. So, yep, that's what I'm going for Lincoln City. Northampton Town next. Who's got them? Is that you, Dan, for them? I normally give you them because you've got a mate as a Northampton fan, but I might not have done this season. Yes, I have. Northampton Town's you, Dan.
Yes. Of the promoted teams from League Two, I think Northampton are going to struggle the most.
Oh, interesting.
I just wasn't overly impressed by them last season, even though they got promoted.
It was almost like
bottled it though, didn't they?
A bit contradictory, and there's not been a lot of transfer action in or out, has there?
They've added another one in since I wrote this. To be fair, they've added in the lad who's linked with us. What's his name? Mark Leonard from Brighton has come in now. That happened over the weekend before after I wrote this. So. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the ex-Carlisle link in Patrick Brough, is he a League? What he's a better player than when he was at us? Is he a League One standard left back, left wing back? We'll find out this season. Manny Monty at Walsall.
He was great at Tranmere, but he never really did it at Walsall, did he? He wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, he's just one of them proper League Two players, and I don't know if he's quite good enough to step up that level. I'd want to see more come in.
What I would say about them is looking at their squad and looking at the additions and stuff. Consistency is the key thing for them, isn't it? So you look at it. They've brought Kieran Bowie back on loan again from Fulham. They brought Mark Leonard back in on loan again from Brighton. So that's 2 seasons in a row with them. Whereas
that's a good player though, isn't it, Mark Leonard?
He is, yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's a really good addition, I think. And like I said, Bowie is as well. I think Tyree Simpson obviously was strongly linked with us. Never happened, but I think the key thing for them is they haven't really lost anyone, have they? They've got Ben Fox in there who's a great player still as well. Sowerby, Mitch Pinnock and Hoskins and all kinds. I think the key thing for them is I think they can have a solid season, I think, because of the fact that they've kept most of the squad together. I tend to agree with you that they maybe need a couple more players of quality added into there, but this is the difficulty with trying to work out now, isn't it? I think, Dan, that we're trying to guess before the window is shut. So
yeah. I mean,
a couple in.
They could bring 4 great signings in through August, and happily. I'm predicting a season struggle for Northampton.
Okay, I feel like there's
possibly even relegation.
Ooh. I feel like there's momentum there with Northampton. That's the thing. First thing I think, because like you said, they've been consistent for 2 solid seasons. They only just missed out on promotion the season before, so I think actually keeping the squad together is not a bad thing. But there is a risk there in the sense that it could become stale as well. That's the one concern they might have in terms of that. Right, Oxford United is next. I think that's you, Mike.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I think they're going to struggle as well, to be honest. Maybe not going down, but certainly not moving up the table very much. Josh McEachran is a decent player, I think, but he's not the most physical, and he can have games where he just gets bullied and doesn't do anything. He can have other games where he looks an absolute class act, but I think, it's one of them. If he was a class act every week, he wouldn't be playing in League One, would he? But I can't see them really doing a lot.
It's interesting when they appointed Carl Robinson left after a long period in charge of them after a season of struggle, didn't he? They appointed Liam Manning, who started very well at MK Dons and then faded very badly. He's one of these sort of new coaches who's got no real playing experience, has he? And he's come in, there's big expectations of, everyone talks about his style and the way he likes to play. There's a risk with doing that, though, isn't there, Dan? That you bring these people in, and if they're not good at the actual management side of it, it becomes a problem. Paul Simpson says this, you can have your philosophies, can't you? But if you don't get results, who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah.
That's the big challenge for them. I'm looking at their additions here as well, Mike. They're relying on a few loan players, aren't they? That you can't be too sure how well they're going to do. That's the problem. The lads who have not really got any experience. What do you think of...
See, I don't... Whilst they haven't got much experience, they're coming from two good academies. Brighton and Brentford are both known for...
And Everton as well.
Strong youth programmes.
From Mills.
I'm going against the grain a bit. I think Oxford are going to do well.
They've still got Sam Baldock there as well. I didn't even realise he was still there. Well, Rodriguez as well is a good addition for them from Notts County, though, isn't he?
That's the one that when I saw him sign, I was like, yeah, that's a good signing.
They had a tough season last season. The key thing is whether they can bounce back from it, because I don't think Manning had that much of a new manager bounce effect, I think, when he took over. I'm not 100% sure what his record was like there last season, but yeah, it's a tough one to judge. I'm just looking at him. Yeah, he only played for Leiston, basically, a non-league side, really. It's the only team he played any games for. He was at Ipswich and didn't play a single first-team game, and he's been in charge of West Ham under 23s, Lommel SK, who I think must be are they a Belgian side, I think, and then obviously MK Dons. He had that started really well, then faded really badly. And then at Oxford, I'm just looking at his record at Oxford, 10 games, 2 wins from those 10 games. So he needs to get a good start, doesn't he? Because his record at MK Dons, he won 40 out of 83 games in charge there. So he did pretty well, generally. But Oxford, if he doesn't get off to a good start, it could be tough for him, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think he will be under pressure. Yeah, it's one of them. Because we're going to talk about the sack race later, and which manager's going to be first to be sacked. But he's not mine, funnily enough. So we'll see.
Interesting indeed. So what are you reckoning for Oxford then, Mike? What are you going for?
I'm going to go 17th.
17th. Okay, you think they're going to be another team that I think pretty much everybody in the division is going to be in that position at the moment, aren't they? We'll have to have a
we did the same the last couple of years for League Two as well, didn't we?
Didn't we? Yeah, it's hard to pick sometimes, isn't it? Peterborough United then, Dan, I think you've got them. What you seem to have some interesting thoughts on them.
They're some team, aren't they? I mean, they're a solid club, and they're always there or thereabouts. And I think they've still got a chance of. I think they'll be in and about the playoffs. I mean, Tishminga from Chesterfield is a classic Peterborough signing.
Non-league player, pay big money for him.
Critchlow from Huddersfield.
I think he's a really good addition, to be fair.
Yeah, they've signed that de Havilland from Barnet. They've always moved players on as well. Norburn went to Blackpool. Christy Pym's finally left there. And they've done that thing where who scores all the goals is up for sale officially, because once you go into, is it the last year or second last year of your deal, you are automatically put up for sale. That's how Peterborough operates.
I don't know that. Interesting, that.
Because they basically will take money for you instead of losing you. That is that's how
Clark Harris,
McDonough, is it McDonough? Darren McDonough, is it?
McAntony, isn't it? I think. Or
McAntony, yeah.
Darren McAntony, yeah.
Yeah, and there is. First of all, there was the thing with the radio with them, where they basically got rid of free radio listening, caused uproar, and they've had to backtrack. And people have said, well, what about, elderly or disabled or ill who can't come? Why should they have to pay to listen, And I can see why they've done it. I think they should have approached it a lot better.
Yeah.
And they're obviously just trying to generate income, aren't they?
Yeah.
But there was a story started appearing recently about the other half of the ownership or something, and a possible winding up order. Was it? All right, I'm just trying to find it again.
Yeah, there was some story. It was in the Athletic, wasn't it? I think that's so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it myself as well. It was an interesting development, wasn't it? Because you always presume that they're fine, don't you? And he's just going to keep ploughing money in and stuff, don't you? But it just came out of nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. We weren't expecting this."
Yeah,
It seems they've dismissed the chance of it being going into administration. I've just seen a story there in the Peterborough Telegraph. So
yeah.
but it's very interesting, wasn't it?
It's never quiet there, is it?
No, and I mean Darren Ferguson's there in his fourth spell as manager.
Yeah.
Which is like remarkable, isn't it? Really, when you look at, but it just works for him there, doesn't it? He just seems to have that ability to make things happen at Peterborough. Yeah, I think when you look through the squad, Dan, there's still quality there, isn't there? I think that's the thing that stands out.
Yeah,
first of all.
yeah.
They're not lacking in, they're not going to lack in players of ability playing for them. So, I mean, I'm just looking through the list here. Even Peter Kioso, they brought in. He's a really good player. Critchlow, as you mentioned, in midfield. Archie Collins has been a good addition. Harrison Burrows is good in there. Kwame Poku, looked a very good player. Was he at Colchester, I think, a couple of years ago? The one signing they've made in recent seasons that doesn't seem to have worked is David Ajiboye. They got from Sutton, and he went back on loan to Sutton last season, didn't he? So
yeah.
Interesting to see whether he stays there or not. But like
there's always fresh signings. There's always someone doing well.
Yeah.
McAntony's he's often on Talk Sport and whatnot,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think they'll be usual there or thereabouts. I don't think they're good enough to be top two,
No.
but I think they'll be in the playoffs soon.
Yeah, I can see that as well. To be fair, that seems likely. Port Vale next. Mike, I think
That's
Port
me,
Vale.
I think. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think they're going to push on a bit this year.
Okay.
They finished 18th last year, but they've made. I mean, one signing for me that hit me straight away. Tom Sang from Cardiff is one hell of a signing. He sort of played midfield / right back, and Cardiff fans basically said he was wasted at right back, and that's sort of why he wound up getting released. When his ability, he's better as like an attacking midfielder, but because Port Vale have signed Mitch Clark from Accrington, I'm guessing that Clark will be playing at right back, and that'll push Sang into midfield.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, again, they've made some pretty solid signings, really. I mean, Jason
I like
Lowe,
Brickley, the
who
keeper.
Jason Lowe, who we were nearly signed.
Apparently nearly signed. That's the rumour. Yep.
Yeah. Connor Grant from Plymouth, I think, is a good signing.
Yeah.
And they've kind of got rid of some dead wood as well, really. I mean, I famously a few years ago thought James Wilson would be League Two top goal scorer, but he's just always been injured, and they've let him go. Jamie Proctor's gone. Players are on probably quite big wages, and they've got rid of them now. So
I'm going to say one thing to you here now, then, Mike. While you're saying all that, where's the goals coming from? Because I'm looking at their attacking options, and it's looking very thin to me in terms of attack. Yeah,
I can see that. But I think for me, the midfield is pretty solid. Let's see, who have they got up front? They've got
Gavin Massey, James Plant, who I'm guessing is a youth player who's coming through, and Ellis Harrison. And maybe a couple of those midfielders you'd maybe class more as being attacking, but I don't know.
I think they're surely, though. I mean, like we said before, that there's still a bit of time left in the window. They will be after someone to play up front, surely.
You'd think so. I think Ethan Chislett's a decent addition from Wimbledon as well. He's a good little player. I like him. But yeah, for me, I'm different to you, mate. I think they're going to struggle. I think the total lack of attacking options at the moment, I feel like it could be a really tough season for them if they can't get some goals into the team. Similar to us, to be fair. We're struggling a little bit for that at the moment, so we can't really talk much. But you mentioned there, Dan, you really like Conor Ripley, though, and I'd agree with you there. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. He's 30 now, man. I can't believe that. I remember him playing for Middlesbrough against us in a pre-season game, and he was outstanding, wasn't he?
Yeah, to be quite honest, if we were looking for a keeper, he's one I would have wanted because he's always been at Northern clubs a lot, and I think he was one of Morecambe's best players last year. Yes, they got relegated, but a keeper's usually busy if that's the case, and I think he quite liked it as well.
Yeah. So Mike, you think they're going to do okay? You think Port Vale? You seem to be.
Yeah, I think just sort of boring mid-table, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. Right. Okay. Well, we'll take a short break and then we'll be back for the part 3 where we're going to do the rest of the predictions, the rest of the previews, but also the predictions.
Hi, I'm Owen Moxon, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Might as well get the most out of that one before he goes. No, with any luck, hopefully he'll still be here come the end of August. With fingers crossed. It was a very strong statement from the club, but we'll talk about that in the Fleetwood preview episode. Portsmouth next. That's me. I quite like the look of Portsmouth this season. I really do. I think they made a very brave decision last year, didn't they, to get rid of the Cowley brothers, wasn't it? Who were the coaching staff there, and bringing John Mousinho for his first head coach role. And there was a lot of eyebrows raised when they did this, wasn't there? I seem to remember that people were like, seriously, that you came rid of them to bring him in, because they weren't that far off the playoff place at that point, were they? But they seemed like very convinced of no, this is the right thing to do. We think he's going to, very impressive him in his interview and that kind of thing. And they weren't that far off the playoffs. I think they still had a little bit too much to do, I think, to get there. So I think the chances of doing it were looking fairly slim for most of the season. But actually, in terms of summer signings, I don't know about you guys, I think they've made 2 or 3 really, really good ones. I think Anthony Scully from Wigan stands out, and Gavin White from Cardiff. Cardiff's a lot of good players from Cardiff joining League One clubs this season. I've noticed that, actually. But yeah, Gavin White is a Northern Ireland international. He's a really good addition. Jack Sparks from Exeter City is another good one. I think even in goal, Will Norris, goalkeeper. He's not played too much in recent seasons because he's been at Burnley and Wolves as backup, but he was a pretty good goalkeeper for Cambridge. Regan Poole from Lincoln City is a player who's done very well at this level for a few seasons now, and they've kept hold of a lot of the decent players in their squad, like Marlon Pack. Bags of experience at this level. I fancy them to have a good go. I think they've got a really good chance of being in the playoff positions this season. I don't know what you guys think. Neither of you want to say anything.
Oh, sorry.
I was just waiting for one of you to say it, but
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think they're due a good season, aren't they? They've kind of, for me, I think that they're certainly at the very least playoffs. Yeah,
I feel like they've got a good chance. I mean, big thing for me is if they can keep hold of Colby Bishop. Probably arguably the best striker at League One level. I think if he can keep scoring goals again this season, I think he could really fire them up to the top. And obviously, Mousinho had a decent start to life as manager there, and I think they'll be hoping he can kick on further. But I just have a feeling they're going to do really well this season. I'm just checking through my notes here again, and I just feel like they've been very busy in the transfer market. I'll give you that. 12 signings. 3 have gone out, and quite a few players released who haven't found clubs, which is not that common with a lot of the other clubs in League One. So they must have cleared out what you'd argue is a bit of deadwood in there. If clubs aren't taking them on.
They've always had a very big squad, though, haven't they, as well?
Generally, yeah. But I just feel like what they've signed is pretty good, and if Mousinho is as good as they think he is, I think they could do really well this season. I could really see them potentially finishing in the playoffs. And you know what? If they get off to a good start and they can keep hold of Bishop, maybe, just maybe, they could have a go at one of those top 2 players. I'm not saying they definitely will, but I think there's a chance. There's always a chance. Reading up next, Mike, and that's you. You've got a friend who's a Reading fan that you put us in contact with for doing the previews and stuff for this season. I'm guessing you've had a chance to have a chat with him, but you've also done a bit of your own research. What are you thinking of them? Because they're a hard one to judge, I think.
Yeah, well, do you know what? It's funny, because we did this season preview last year, and I've got a mate who's a Rochdale fan, and I said, how do you think you're going to do? And he said, well, we've just been relegated, but we've got some ownership situations off the pitch, and I think we could hopefully finish mid-table. And this is exactly what Alex, the Reading fan, said to me. And obviously Rochdale last season got relegated. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, one of the things they've allegedly got like a transfer embargo, but nothing has officially been said about it. But it's understood that they're not allowed to pay fees for players, or even loan fees.
Well, they've timed that well because they've signed Charlie Savage for an undisclosed fee from Man United. So what's
well,
happening with that?
Well, this has come in since they've signed a few players, and one of the other things is they're not allowed to pay a player more than £1,500 a week, which at this level isn't going to get you a lot. I think certainly the signings they've made, Smith and Savage, will be on more than that, definitely. So yeah, it's. But I think Sam Smith is a cracking signing.
One that we were allegedly linked with as well. There's rumours that we were potentially interested in bringing him in.
Yeah, because I think he scored about 13 goals last season in a pretty poor Cambridge side.
Yeah, it's a pretty good return.
Yeah, but I mean, some of their off the field stuff is really concerning, I think, and I'm not entirely convinced compared to some of the other teams that I think will go down. I don't think that they're as bad on paper as them, but you never know with some of these off the field issues. If players aren't getting paid on time and stuff like that, it does play into how they perform on the pitch. And I don't think that they'll be going down. I'm going to put them in that box with all the other teams that are going to be above the relegation zone. But
I think it's just a season of adjustment for them, isn't it? Because they've obviously got some troubles. You know, there's one or two players have left. You know, they've got good money for the lad to Genoa.
Yeah,
you know,
3 million.
Which probably helps with whatever it is that's going on there. I think it'll just be one of those sort of seasons of transition, mid-table type thing.
I think bang mid-table and potentially could push for the playoffs if there's a chance for them maybe to, if things click, if they can sort out some of the transfer issues. I mean, you say that,
they could sign half. You know, they could get sorted and then sign half a dozen in January and push on. You know,
the big thing for them is I'm just looking here. They've only got 18 in the squad at the moment. It's a very small squad, and only one goalkeeper, who's obviously former Blues stopper Dean Buzanis. So it is quite a thin squad. There's still quality in there. There's still clear quality in there, isn't there? I think Lewis Wing's a good addition actually as well. At this level, someone who really knows how to play at League One. And like I said, in attack, those two coming in. Is Andy Carroll still contracted there? He's listed in their squad, but I had a feeling he'd left. I might be wrong on that one, but he's still listed with squad number 2, which I'm not on board with in the slightest. An attack our way in the number 2. Utterly ridiculous.
No, disgusting.
So yeah, interesting how he does. Okay then, Mike, so you are going for a mid-table finish with Reading, you think, this season? You reckon they're
about 13th or so, I reckon.
Yeah, okay, like every other team we've picked this season, but there you go.
Yeah.
Shrewsbury Town, so this one's me. Really interested to see how they do this season, because I was chatting with my mate Dale, who's a Shrewsbury fan. I think you know Dale, Dan. I think you've met him a couple of times, probably.
Yeah, I met him a few years back, yeah.
For the older Shrewsbury Town supporters team.
Yeah.
We used to play for the Carlisle supporters team. Yeah, it's interesting because last season they did quite well. They finished 12th. And Steve Cotterill did a good job. He's an old school manager, Cotterill, isn't he? His style of football is very agricultural. I think most people would agree on that. But he knows how to grind out results. And, and Dale was saying, like, there was times last season when they were wasting time on throws after 5 minutes. But they were getting results and getting themselves away from trouble. Cotterill had quite a big fallout with the chairman, I think, in January over spending. I think in terms of the chairman thought he was spending too much on player wages. And apparently they didn't speak for like the final 5 months of the season. So it was always fairly obvious that Cotterill was likely to leave in the summer, even though I think he still had time left on his contract. He left. I think Mickey Moore from Cheltenham was brought in as director of football, and they've gone for this option of director of football and head coach. And the head coach they brought in is Matthew Taylor, ex-Portsmouth and West Ham player. Now, he didn't have a great spell in charge at Walsall, did he? He found it very tough. So, to get a job at League One level, he's done pretty well for himself, hasn't he? I think it's fair to say. I don't think many people would have expected him to find a job at that level, but he has got one. They've had quite a big clear out in terms of players leaving in the summer, and they've got a load of new players coming in. Dale's thoughts are that defensively they look quite solid, but in terms of attack, They look quite thin. They're going to rely heavily on Ryan Bowman, who's now their new captain apparently, for goals. They've got Aidan O'Brien up there as well, and Daniel Udoa. But other than that, that's where they're really a bit worried. I think they've got a lad on loan from Hibs as well, who looks like he potentially could be a interesting signing, Noah Kenner. But beyond that, they're relying a lot on young players who've been promoted to their first team squad from the youth team. I'm just looking here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 4 players who are coming from the youth team to bring their squad up to 24. Beyond that, they've only got 20 players. So it could be a tough season for them. I feel Carl Winchester's an interesting signing.
Yeah.
Lots of experience at this level, and that kind of thing. Really good player for Sunderland in recent seasons. Elliot Forbes, a good loan signing, I think, from Luton. He should be a good addition. I'm skirting around the issue of talking about one of the other additions, aren't I think? So let's get on to it. Morgan Feeney. We're kind of in agreement. It's a sideways step for him, isn't it? I think we all sort of agree that it's a very weird move. He should have been going to a high level if he was going to leave us. It looks like he's going to be playing regularly because they've lost a couple of players at the back. So I think he's going to replace Matthew Pennington, who's gone to Blackpool, we mentioned earlier. They've lost the captain, Luke Lee, who's gone to Wycombe Wanderers. Tom Bloxon, one of their attackers, has gone on loan to Morecambe, so that's why they're a bit thin in attack as well. I feel like they might struggle a bit. And I think it's partly because of bringing in an experienced coach in Taylor into that role, as someone who didn't do that well at Walsall on the level below. Having to rebuild. The problem is, if he's coming in and there's an established squad there and a bit of experience and it's not looking too bad, you'd maybe think, okay, there's a chance for him to build something here. But they're having a rebuild, really. Realistically, if you look at it. So actually, I could see them really struggling. I don't know what you guys think. What's your thoughts, Mike?
It's interesting because I think like Pennington out, Feeney in kind of cancels each other out a little bit. But Luke Liahi, or however you pronounce it, I think that's a massive loss. I think he won pretty much all of their Player of the Season awards. Bar one, because one for me that is always interesting with players is the Players' Player of the Season award. I think that often says a lot, and that was Pennington. So they've lost both of them, and I think there'll be massive losses. And I think they're going to be in that group with all of the other teams again. I reckon, about 14th, and I think, Feeney really has made a sideways step, I think.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Dan? I feel like they're going to struggle. I think they're taking a big risk in appointing to get rid of an experienced manager like Cotterill as well.
I'm of the opinion they are really going to struggle. Really, really going to struggle.
Yeah, I just interesting. I'm just looking at the message that Dale was sending me about how he thinks they're going to do. His big hope is that the football's a bit better, because he says one of the reasons he hasn't actually renewed his season ticket at Shrewsbury, other than the fact that he lives a bit away from Shrewsbury now, is that the football was awful to watch at times. He said he actually quite liked Cotterill as a manager. He was very straightforward to the point, and he kept them in League One, but there was times when their games wouldn't finish before 5 o'clock quite often because of the amount of time wasted and trying to drag games out and just win.
It's going to be different this season.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it does for them, because obviously Taylor coming in, and Taylor's got this reputation allegedly of being quite a good coach and getting teams playing a good way, but he couldn't implement that at Walsall, and Walsall were a pretty solid team at League Two level, what a team that everyone thought might do fairly well. He just couldn't do it there, could he? So I'm curious to see how they get on. I'll be honest with you, I think they'll struggle. I know you've gone for 34. I have a feeling they might be right down there. If they can't get attackers in, they're going to rely heavily on Bowman. And if he gets a knock, where are the goals in that team? I just don't see it. It's similar to us in that sense that, that relying heavily on one player for goals, if that player goes, you start to worry a little bit, don't you, in terms of what they're going to do. So I feel like they're going to, I don't know if they'll be relegated, but I think they might be in a bit of a scrap come the end of the season, I think. So that's what I'm going for on Shrewsbury. Up next, Stevenage. I think that's yours, Mike, is it?
Is it?
Or was it mine? I'm trying to check here. I haven't got I had the list up a minute ago. I'm trying to see. Stevenage is you. It's your last team, actually.
Yeah, it's mine. Yeah. Well, again, they were very good last season, but they're good at what they do, shall we say? And these new rules that are coming in, I think might hit them more than other teams, shall we say.
I know I've seen some Stevenage fans saying that we're obsessed with them in terms of the replies to the tweet that you did, I think, Dan, about the new rules and how that's going to affect them.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
No, so you did the quote tweet on the Bugle account, I think, didn't you? Saying, how's this? What's your views on these changes?
Oh yeah, no, I just quote tweeted the EFL asking for opinions, and I think a few people replied.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
mentioning Stevenage. Yeah.
And some of their fans are like, oh my god, they're still obsessed with us and stuff. It's like, but it's factually correct, isn't it? Considering 41 minutes is how long the ball was in play against us in that game at Brunton Bugle.
But at the same time, though, like, these rules are designed to basically just make it pointless to be time wasting like that.
Yeah.
So people are sort of joking like, oh yeah, well, there's going to be like 30 minutes added time. But if people rolling around on the floor creates 30 minutes added time, hopefully it'll just stop people rolling around on the floor.
Maybe, but then maybe for them it might just be a case of they don't actually mind dragging the game out that long. It just frustrates you as much as anything. Maybe that's the way they're looking at it. What do you think about their summer transfer activity then?
Yeah, well, they've done quite a lot, which I think is sometimes quite a good sign. They're not sort of willing to rest on the laurels after last season. Harry Anderson was a good signing from Bristol Rovers, I think. Dan Butler from Peterborough, I think he's a good defender.
Louis Thompson as well from Portsmouth.
Yeah.
They're quite happy to sign the Thompsons, aren't they? They've signed 3 of them this summer: Nathan Thompson, Louis Thompson, and Ben Thompson have all come in, haven't they?
If only they'd signed 2, we could have give a shout out to 80s band the Thompson Twins.
Or the characters from the Tintin comics as well.
Yeah.
Look, it feels very standard Steve Evans signings, isn't it? He's signed a lot of good solid players, good workhorse players who are going to really work hard for you. I feel the concern for me with them would be goals. I think they got away with it when we were at League 2 level. Are they going to get away with as much here? Elliot List being back from injury is a big plus for them, though, because he spent a lot of last season out injured, didn't he? So having him back is a real big bonus. But beyond that, Jamie Reid did fairly well last season. Is he going to do that well at 29 at League 1 level? I don't know. I think they may struggle a little bit for goals, but I fully expect them not to concede many again this season because just the way Evans works.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I don't think they're in danger of relegation. I don't think they're going to pull up any trees either. But I think that there's quite a lot of kind of good footballing teams in this league, and I think Stevenage are going to upset the apple cart a little bit with what they do. Yeah.
Worth noting that they've only made 1 loan signing so far, and that's Christian Hegiai from is a Hungarian goalkeeper from West Ham, in case you wonder why I'm struggling to pronounce it. But they did sign Tay Ashby-Hammond permanently, who they'd had on loan last season, so I think they'll be quite happy with that one, getting him in on a permanent basis. But they've got those 4 loan options available, and fair play Evans, he's quite good at getting decent loanees, and isn't he? He's been quite smart with it in the past. So interesting to see what he does in terms of using those spaces for the rest of the season. So what's your thoughts on how they'll do?
I reckon about 13th.
13th, okay.
I think they'll struggle, but they'll shithouse the way to safety, basically.
Yeah, I think I'd go lower because than that. Yeah,
a lot of the stuff we got away with in League 2, it's a better standard of club in League 1, and some of these League 1 clubs will just roll them. You know, when they're playing a Derby County or a Peterborough or a Bolton, they're above that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly that.
So I think they'll struggle, but I don't think they'll go down.
Okay. All right, up next, the penultimate team, Wigan Athletic. And Dan, that's you. This is a really interesting one to see how they're going to do, because for like about the 3rd or 4th season in a row, there's ownership turmoil and stuff that's happened off the pitch, which has been sorted now. But the starting the season with -8 points, and however good they are, that's still something to overcome, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the three wins behind after 0 games, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think similar to sort of how I mentioned for Reading, I think basically aim 1 is to reduce that gap as soon as possible. and I think it'll be a proper transition season for Wigan. Apparently, the bloke who's come in, I think he was involved with the rugby league team for quite a number of years, so he's no stranger to sport, which will help them. But I think it's a case of the -8 is a handicap, but I think they'll do enough to see it, and I have them in that sort of lower mid-table bracket, even with the -8.
Okay, you think they'll get themselves away for a draw? I think they could have a really tough season. You know, they've not sold that many in terms of season tickets. They've lost a few key players. You know, Max Power going to El Qadsiya. Have I got that right? I'm guessing that's Saudi Arabian, that one, rather than Qatar. I'm not 100%. We'll see. Scully's gone to Portsmouth. Wilkins's gone to Preston. Yeah, I don't know. I've just got this feeling that it's going to be a tough season.
Callum McManaman a weird signing because he was pretty crap for Tranmere last season.
Well, where did he go to? He went to. Did he go to Australia as well after that? Possibly, I can't remember. Or did he just leave them? And
I can't even remember. But he, I think it's pure sentiment. You know, sentimental because he scored for Wigan in the FA Cup final, didn't he, years ago?
No, he was man of the match in the FA Cup final. It was Ben Watson.
You're right, yeah.
No, you're right. Sorry, apologies. He left Tranmere in 2022, and he's not played for anyone last season. So interesting that. Yeah, it's a strange one.
But I mean, they've still got Josh Magennis up front, and I think he'll be a real handful for defenders in this league.
Yeah.
But there's not many clubs in this league who've signed players on loan for Bayern Munich either. Liam Morrison.
Yeah, that lad Liam Morrison's interesting, wasn't he, Mike? I mean, Dan, what do you know about the crack with him? Because I'm guessing it's Bayern Munich's B team he's on loan for, isn't it? But how's he ended up at Bayern Munich, that lad?
Well, he's one of these who you often find a lot of young footballers in Scotland sort of flip-flop between Rangers and Celtic as youth. And when he was 16, he was linked with a few English teams.
Yeah.
And I think he got in the Celtic first team squad for pre-season or something.
Yeah.
And then Bayern Munich basically made a bid before Celtic gave him a contract. And he joined them. And I can remember at the time, he was sort of told about how, well, first of all, he thought it was a joke, but also Bayern had like a pathway for him.
Yeah.
And he went into the youth teams, and obviously they have the number 2 teams, and he's played a few games for the second team.
Yeah,
and you know they play regional league Bayern, which is
the
one
Bavarian
of 5 or 6. Yeah, 5 or 6 of them are like
it's fourth tier
National
level,
League
basically.
standard. Yeah. But it's the decent level still, and he's ended up at Wigan on loan.
Very unusual move, isn't it? You don't see that many players like that. Yeah, very, very strange one, isn't it? But yeah, so interesting to see how he gets on. I think getting the lad on loan from Liverpool, Balagizi as well. He was at Crawley, I think, last season. He looked okay for them, I think. He's not a bad addition. Yeah, I don't know about them. I feel like they might have a really tough season. They've still got Charlie Wyke, though, as well as an attacker. You know, you imagine he'll get a few goals at that level too. So, yeah, they've probably got just about enough to keep themselves away from, or drag themselves away from the trouble after the points deduction, but maybe it'd be tough for them to get into the playoff race simply because of that points deduction.
Oh yeah. Like I say, I think they'll have enough to get away from it. I mean, they'll struggle at times; they're bound to, but it's a big season of transition for them.
Absolutely. Right, on to the final team before we do our predictions. That's me. I've got Wycombe Wanderers. Wycombe are a hard one to judge, really, because they're very much established at the top end of League One these days, aren't they, when you look at them? They've consistently been there for season after season. They had that season in the Championship as well. But they lost their long-serving boss, Gareth Ainsworth, last season, went to QPR. So they replaced him with his former captain, Matt Bloomfield. He came in to take on the job, and they narrowly missed out on the playoffs. I'm very interested to see how Bloomfield does in his first full season in charge, because he was obviously riding on a bit of the momentum, wasn't he, last season? I think it's fair to say, you know, in terms of getting results and keeping them right up there. It's a big difference, isn't it, to then be the main man and see how you do that? Because I'm looking at his win record after coming in. 15 games. He only won 4 games out of those 15 games in charge at the end of last season. So again, it's one of those ones. If he doesn't start that well, they might get twitchy and think, oh, we don't want to end up getting dragged in towards the bottom, and he may find it tough. Interestingly as well, their owner mentioned this pre-season that he's on a basically looking at a succession plan for them. He's looking to sell the club in the next 4 years. He's an American guy who took over like 3.5 years ago, so he's potentially looking to move things on soon. So how long, how committed he's going to be in terms of putting money in for the next few seasons, you just don't know, do you? So interesting to see how he does. Summer editions, the one that stands out, isn't there? Other than Luke Lee from Shrewsbury, we mentioned previously, for an undisclosed fee. Richard Keogh, he's gone there. He was on loan there before he came on loan to us, wasn't he? I think years and years and years ago. So it's a little bit of a return for him. Didn't play that much for Ipswich last season, I don't think, but I think maybe at a club like Wycombe he might get used a bit more. Do you think that's quite a good addition for them, Mike?
I think he's, we've seen ourselves what an experienced centre-half can kind of bring to the table. I think, where was he released from last summer?
He was at Ipswich. He didn't actually play that much.
Ipswich, yeah, because I remember their fans were quite disappointed that he got released, and they thought that he still had stuff to offer. But an interesting signing for me is Harry Boyes. He was brought to Solihull by Greg Abbott. And so he was a player that I thought that we might sniff around at some point. He was in National League Team of the Year, and then last year he sort of stepped up and had a loan spell with Forest Green, who Forest Green were awful. And you can't just pin that on individual players. But I think he could be a good sign as well. But they've got Sam Vokes up front as well, which...
bags of experience. Sorry, go on what you say.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, looking through the team, I think that they've got quality, and I think we're going to see them up there.
I think they've gone in early on getting all their loan signings done, and the one that stands out, actually, you mentioned Harry Boyes, but Cian Brecken from Manchester City is meant to be very highly thought of by City. So to get him on loan he could make a really big impact. And Dale Taylor from Forest, I think he was one that was maybe linked with us as well. Dan, I seem to remember maybe there was some murmurs with him potentially coming on loan to us, but he's obviously gone to Wycombe. So yeah, just see how he does. In terms of players going out, I don't think they're hugely disappointed about who's gone. Really, they released quite a few, and then maybe Lewis Wing going to Reading's the only one that really stands out as one that would be disappointed to lose. Maybe Abita going to Hibernian, but bar that, the rest kind of feel like they're just moving players on. So for me, it's how Bloomfield can start the season, and if he doesn't have a great start, then they might well move on, and actually they could get someone in who could keep them up there towards the top. So I feel like they're going to be in a very similar position. I think they're going to just miss out on the playoffs. I don't think they're quite enough to challenge the teams that are up near the top for that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Wycombe. Right, well, that's the League One club previews done, guys. So it's on to the bit that I think everybody loves the most in this episode. It's our predictions for the season. So we predict in terms of League One. We also predict in terms of what the Cal United are going to do. And anyone who's listening to this might not know that this is the second time we've had to record this bit because my laptop decided to die right in the middle of us finishing it off, and I lost all the bits we recorded for the season predictions. So very annoying, but here we go. We're going to have another crack at it and try and get it done this time. So we go through the League One ones first, and then we do the Cal United. So up first, champions. Dan, who are you going to predict to be the champions this season in League One?
Bolton Wanderers.
That's not a bad shout. Not a bad shout. Yeah, you gave it. What were your good reasoning you gave for this first time we recorded it? So what was it again?
Stability, solid season last season. One or two good signings, key players on long-term deals.
Yeah,
I just think they're there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I can really see that. Definitely, I definitely can see that happening. Mike, who did you go for on this?
I've gone for Peterborough.
Okay, yeah, interesting one. Even with the off-the-field issues, I mean, they don't seem to be that big of issues, to be fair. No. And they're always consistently up there, aren't they? I guess.
Yeah,
I could see them being up there. I went for the Derby County on this one. I just feel like Paul Warne's a very good manager, and I think they haven't got the heartache of losing in the playoffs to worry about. They've been able to sort of prepare themselves a bit sooner, and I just feel that's going to really help them. And I can see them being right up there. Promoted, so only one team gets promoted alongside the champions automatically in League One. Mike, who have you gone for?
So, as a bit of a shock to the system, I've gone for Wycombe.
That's a shocker. I didn't know you were going to say that from the first recording. Explain yourselves.
Well, I just think they've got quality and they've got goals. They've got a solid defence. They've made some good signings. Yeah, I think they're going to be up there.
That is a really left field shot. Fair play to you. Dan, who have you gone for?
Derby.
Yeah, it seems obvious. And I flipped as well. I had Bolton as my second place alongside your champions for them. So yeah, we've gone for 1 and 2, just the different way around. And I agree with you. I feel like they've got a good manager in charge. He's really built something there. And even losing a keeper as good as Trafford, they brought in Baxton. I think he can do a really good job for them with the experience he's got from his loan spells. So yeah, Bolton in second. Playoffs. Right. Who are you going for on this one, Mike?
I've gone for Portsmouth to be promoted, and I've also gone for Charlton, Bolton, and Derby.
Okay. I went on this one, Portsmouth, and I think they'll win the playoffs alongside Blackpool, Charlton, and Peterborough. Dan, what did you go for?
Charlton, Peterborough, Barnsley, and Oxford. I just think Oxford are going to do all right.
Yeah, that's your left field choice alongside Mike's Wickham one, really. So interesting choice.
Yeah, Charlton to be promoted out them for.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Alfie May's such a good sign for them, and if he can hit the ground running like he obviously was doing at Cheltenham last season, then yeah. It back. Relegated, right? What have I gone for on this? I'm going to end up probably changing what I picked, but Cambridge United and Cheltenham Town were the first two that stood out for me straight away. I was like, I just can't see them doing well. I think they're going to have really tough seasons. Port Vale as well. I just don't see where the goals are coming from at Port Vale. I think it's going to be a really, really long old slog for them. And then it's a straight shoot for me between Shrewsbury Town and Oxford United. And I'm going to go for Oxford, I think. I went for Oxford first time, so I'm going to stick with that. Oxford United, I really think they'll be down there. But I think Stevenage could get dragged into it as well, potentially. There's a couple more that, might find it tough. But yeah, they're the two that stand on me, so I'll go with Oxford of those ones. Dan, what are you going for?
I agree on Cheltenham and Cambridge. I already said I think Northampton are in for the struggle. And I just think Shrewsbury... I just don't think it's going to happen for them.
No? Okay, that's what you're going with. Mike, what have you gone for?
So, similar to Dan, I've gone Cambridge, Cheltenham and Northampton, but I've gone for Fleetwood as well.
Just since you think the off-the-field issues are going to really cause problems at Fleetwood, and
yeah,
you feel like so. they might lose a couple of those quality players, maybe that's where the big difference is going to be, possibly. Yeah. So, no, fair enough. Dark Horse, Mike, we know what yours is, don't we?
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious, Wickham Wanderers. I mean, like I said at the first time, I think if they were in the playoffs, I wouldn't accept that as a dark horse, but I think to finish second would very much be dark horse behaviour from them.
Yeah.
Dan, what are you going for?
Leyton Orient. I'm not saying they'll be top 6, but I think they can be top 12, top half of the table. Yes, they've lost a couple of key players, but I think they've recruited quite well, and I'm no fan of Wellens, but he's an all right manager.
Yeah, no, he is, to be fair. I'd agree with that. I think Leyton Orient, I'm going to go with my dark horse as well. I think they can push for a top half place, and they've made some good signings, I think, definitely.
They always land some decent loans because they're so close to, Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, various other clubs.
And being at League One level, they'll get a better standard than they have done.
Yeah, definitely.
Surprise struggler. Right, so I'll go first in this one. I nearly went with Reading with this, but I don't know. I just feel like they might have just enough quality. They might sort of that transfer embargo thing and get a couple of players in. I think Exeter City. I think Exeter are going to have a tough season. I think they've lost some key players. They've not really replaced them with that much quality. There's been a mishmash sort of season. And Gary Caldwell there, he did a quite decent job actually after taking over last season, but probably better than expected. But he's one of those ones I'm never sure about him as a manager. So, yeah, I'm going to go Exeter City. Mike, what are you going for, surprise struggler?
I've gone for Barnsley. I don't think they're going to struggle per se, but I think people are tipping them for promotion, and I can't see it. I think they'll just be boring mid-table.
Okay, fair enough. Dan, what are you going for?
Well, Mike won't like this. Wickham.
Interesting. You think Wickham are going to have a tough one? I tend to agree with you. I think they might find it tough simply because of. I think Bloomfield's got to really hit the ground running there. I think that's
Yeah,
the
and
challenge.
that's the thing. I think if they don't hit the ground running, they may struggle a little bit. And once you're in that rut, it's hard to get out.
100%. It could be really, really tough, can't it? Right. Top scorer. What are we going for, Dan?
Alfie May.
That's a good shout, to be fair. It's very hard to argue
I
that
think the last 2 seasons, Cheltenham have been 15th and 16th, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he's scored 23 and 20.
Yeah.
He's going to a bigger, better team. He'll get more chances, and I think he'll score more goals.
Yeah, can't really argue that too much. Mike, what are you going for?
I'm going for Chimanga at Peterborough.
Yeah, that's a good shout, to be fair. Because I feel it as well, especially if Clark Harris moves on there, he's going to be the main man, isn't he? And the focus of goals are going to go through him, so that's not a bad shout. I'm going for Colby Bishop at Portsmouth. I just think as long as they can keep hold of him, he's just going to carry on where he left off last season. He's going to get plenty of goals. So yeah, Colby Bishop.
I think when you look at League One, there's some good strikers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The three we've mentioned are in the top 5 of the betting. You know, which Clark Harris is in there, and Dion Charles is the other that's in there.
Yeah, Charles is a weird one. I'm just not convinced he'll get that many goals. I think he's a good player, but I don't know. I can't see him free scoring like the others. But there you go.
No.
Player of the season. I think Dan, you can go first because I'm going to pick the same as you as we did the first time we did this.
Conor Hoolahan for me at Derby.
100%.
He scores his share of goals. He creates. He runs a game, doesn't he?
Yeah, Conor Hoolahan. I agree with you.
I think he's a quality player at League One level.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think he'll be right up there as player of the season. Mike, what did you go for?
Well, I've gone for Kyle Dempsey at Bolton. I think if they're to have a good season, he'll be central to that.
That's a really good shout, to be fair. I'd agree with you that. I think he could potentially be a really big player for them. First manager sacked. I think you two are both going to go for the same one here, aren't you?
Yeah. Mark Bonner.
Mark Bonner, yeah.
Mark Bonner at Cambridge. I've gone for Wade Elliott at Cheltenham just to be different. But I think we're sort of both in agreement. They're the two clubs we both expect to struggle. So it's whichever one gets the itchy trigger, early, isn't it, really, in terms of worrying? So
I think Cambridge has been at Bonner's been at Cambridge for a good few years, and I think he's been there 4 years or so.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I think they might give him a little bit more time. Whereas with Elliott, I think they might just panic a little bit, Cheltenham a bit sooner. But there you go. Right, Carl United predictions. Let's try and bash through these before my laptop dies again, probably. Where will we finish? So last season we all predicted us. Well, I don't think actually Mike didn't predict us for the playoffs. No. Me and Dan both did, and we both predicted we'd win it as well. So we were bang on with that. What are you going for this season, Mike?
I've gone for 15th.
Okay, well, solid enough. In amongst all those other millions of teams that are going to be finishing in that position as well. Dan, what are you gone for?
One better, 14th.
Okay. I did the 4-4-2 preview for us, which we had to do like a month before it actually came out, so the detail was a little bit thin in terms of signings and stuff at that point. I predicted 12th then. I said the same on Gab Sutton's EFL debate thing, and he was a bit gobsmacked by that. I'm standing by it. I think we've got a really good, solid defence. I think if we can add a couple of forward plays in, we'll be all right. 12th place I'm going for. I'm sticking with that. Top scorer. I'll go first in this one. Ryan Edmondson. I think he's going to get a few goals this season. I can really see him being a big part of what we do. I think the focus is going to be mainly around him in attack, and I think there's a couple of players alongside him they're going to support. But I think he'll be
for me.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement with that. And Mike,
but I think it would be one of them seasons where several score a few, where there's no outstanding.
Yeah, and when I say he's top scorer, I think it might be like 10, 11, 12 goals. Nothing like
12. I was thinking about 12 to 15 if he has a really good season.
Yeah, if he can get going really quickly, and if he can stick to being in the middle a bit more often, it might help as well. But rather, I know he likes to drift that way and he's very good at it, but if he can just stay in that middle, I think he can get more goals. Mike, what have you gone for?
I've gone Sean Maguire.
Okay.
I think playing alongside Edmondson will suit him really well, and I think he'll get a load of goals.
Okay, fair enough. Player of the season, should I just say mine now and get out of the way? John Mellish. We know that's inevitable, isn't it?
Same.
Mike, you're going for the same, aren't you? Yeah. And Dan, who are you going for?
I struggled with this one because I think if Edmondson does well, he's up there. But as I've said several times before, I'm a big Jack Armour fan, and I think he's going to take the step up like a duck to water.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. To be fair,
I think his last season grew. He got better and better and better, and us tying him down to a long-term contract was a cracking piece of business.
Yeah, no, that's a fair
shout. Because if he continues on the upward curve, teams will come in.
Yeah, definitely. Most improved. Who are we going for on this one, Mike? Who do you think is going to be the player who improves the most over the season?
Well, I think it's a lot tougher this year because last year we were actually very good. So, whereas, the season before we weren't. But based off pre-season, I've gone for Jaden Harris.
Okay. That's not a bad show. What are you going for, Dan?
I was going to say Harris as well. I think he'll have his use at times in this division, which sounds a bit daft when he was a bit part at best last season, but he certainly looks bigger and stronger and fitter.
I'm going to complete the hat-trick there and say Jaden Harris. And I think it's partly because he's starting from a low base. That's the thing. The level he's going to improve could be really big. And I think I've been impressed with him in pre-season. Look, he's still a bit of a rough diamond. He's still got a bit to work on. But
he got given a 3-year contract for a reason.
Yeah, they clearly fancy him.
He obviously saw something. Yeah,
exactly that. Where are we going to finish in the FA Cup, or where are we going to go out in the FA Cup?
I'd be happy with third round to a Premier League team and do me.
Yeah, what are you going to go for, Mike?
I've said 4th round.
I'm going to go with you 4th round as well. I feel like the league will be fairly solid and we'll have a chance to have a go in the cup and make a bit of money. I'm going to go 4th round FA Cup. League Cup, what are we going for on this one, Mike?
See, I reckon League Cup 1st round because we've got Peterborough away.
Harrogate away, it's going to kill us.
Harrogate away, yeah.
Yeah, what you got? You got 1st round then, mate. What you going for?
If we somehow break the Harrogate hex, I'd just like to get a decent team in the 2nd round again. Decent crowd. I mean, you're talking. There's not that many big northern teams you can get because they're all in Europe now. Because even Newcastle are in Europe, etc. But I was going to say Aston Villa, but they're in Europe, aren't they?
Spurs aren't though. I know it's not northern, but chance to get the new Spurs.
If you could get a Tottenham or a Chelsea at home or something, or even away, that'd be all right.
Yeah, it'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? Pretty good. I'm going to go 2nd round. Yeah, I feel like we'll beat the Harrogate Hex finally. But even if it's just on penalties, scabbing penalty shoot or something. But I feel like, I think beyond that, I think we'll probably get a big team and end up going out. So there you go. That's it then. God, this has been a slog because let me tell you, the Gremlins have been out. We're going to have a look at the studio we use and maybe switch to something different, I think, because this has been a bit tough. I mean, as much my laptop has been the problem, I think, for this episode, unfortunately. But there you go. Dan, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to take a day or so to put this thing together. We're going to be back later in the week. I think it's going to be me and Mike to look ahead to the Fleetwood game and talk generally about how we think the season's going to go. I think, Dan, you're going to send us over a few bits about that in terms of how things will be. And we'll be discussing stuff like the Moxon situation as well, and how the club's handled that, and also the Sean Maguire signing. But we'll be back later in the week to look ahead to the game, and of course we'll have back as well the old behind the many lines as well. We're going to be speaking to a Fleetwood fan hopefully ahead of that game. I think I've got one lined up, so should be all good. So thanks everyone for listening, and most importantly of all, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.